The last time y'all saw me, obviously I had a lot to say. You thought I was finished. I wasn't. The Stephen A. Smith Show coming your way. Check it out. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you over the digital airwaves of YouTube, at the very least every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. As usual, I've got nothing but love for my supporters and subscribers because the numbers keep escalating. I'm now at nearly 500,000, 498,000 plus to be exact, within the first 9.5 months of this podcast on YouTube. If it were not for y'all, it wouldn't be possible. So I appreciate the love. Thank you so much. Keep the love coming. I'm going to keep on coming as always. And as I always tell you, to continue to like and follow the Stephen A. Smith Show, just click on the bell right there and boom, there you are in. The last time you saw me, we know what I said. And just as an aside, this entire podcast is not going to be, or this episode is not going to be about all of that. I'm going to get into the NFL because we've got playoff weekend approaching. I'm going to get into some NBA action since I was at the Lakers-Phoenix Suns game last night and saw them get their butts kicked. We're going to get into all of that as the show, this particular episode, progresses. But I felt the need in the aftermath of what you saw on Wednesday to address all of y'all as directly as I possibly can be. Or I possibly could. You saw Stephen A. Smith, that some would say was out of character. Obviously, I was profane. I was incendiary. I was insulting. I was a lot of different things. It was intentional. I meant every single word that I said. There isn't a sentence, a graph, or a syllable I'm backing up from Wednesday's episode. I meant every single word I said, and I will never, ever retract it. Having said that, it does not mean that it was the right thing to do. It wasn't about right or wrong. It was about addressing the bullying that was going on, spanning 10 plus years, where I have said absolutely, positively nothing. Although I've always had the platforms to do so, I never said a word. And at some point in time, when lies and insults and innuendos and embellishments and things are set in motion to literally denigrate and excoriate who I am, I'm going to raise up. But I promised my family, my friends, my loved ones, my daytime employers, that is ESPN and specifically the Walt Disney family, that would be the only time I ever did that. And I'm going to keep my word. You see, everybody ain't blessed to know somebody as influential and as powerful as Bob Iger, to a Dana Walden, to a Jimmy Pitaro, and a Burke Magnus. They're not blessed and fortunate enough to work for somebody that I respect and hold near and dear to me like a Dave Roberts. The colleagues and contemporaries and the relationships that I have in this business on a direct level, whether it be with the likes of everybody from Chris Broussard and Rob Parker to a Michael Holley to a Jamel Hill to a Dan Lebatard to a Michael Wilbon and you know, folks like that. Everybody ain't blessed and fortunate enough to have the relationships that I have. And so I'm mindful of the fact that how I conduct myself is not just a reflection on me, but it's a reflection on them. That would be the reason why I called everyone in advance, to let them know this wasn't rash and impromptu and something that I couldn't control myself, so I just had to let it out. No, it was intentional. To people out there who felt that I was body shaming somebody, when I used the word fat, I was doing no such thing. To each his own. One of my best friends is my boy named Pooley, that I constantly joke about on the podcast. To him, somebody fat in excess of 250 to 300 pounds is his definition of Beyonce. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I didn't mean to come across as somebody body shaming folks. I was talking about one person and one person only. It was not meant to body shame anyone. Let me be very, very clear about that. I'm not about that. I'm fiscally conservative. I'm socially liberal, which means that with my money, I'm tight. Can't stand paying these damn taxes. But with everything else, I'm socially liberal. Pro-choice, gay rights, transgender, list goes on and on and on. It's not about how I feel about an individual subject or what have you. It's about people having the right to be who they are and me not excoriating or castigating them in any way. I made one exception. That was this past Wednesday. Again, I backtracked, not a scintilla, not a step. I meant every word. And I will forever mean every word that I uttered about that person for the rest of my life. But that's all. There's a bigger subject that has to be addressed. And it's something to white America, you're welcome to listen in. But I'm talking to my community specifically at this particular moment in time, the Black community. I'm not just a Black man. I'm a brother. I love my Black people. Always have, always will. Regardless of the trials and tribulations, regardless of the potholes and the pitfalls, regardless of the obstacles that stand in front of our way, there is nothing on earth that I love being more than Black. I have always been that way, and I will always be that way. But in the throes of one debate after another, where we're constantly butting heads and going back at each other over issues, let me tell you what I think things have diminished and dissipated into. It's about people looking to spew their narrative or looking to attach a narrative or an agenda to something as opposed to taking things at face value for what they are from time to time. All of us can be guilty of that. But it's a problem when we're guilty of it all the time. I listened to several people reacting to my diatribe or rant or whatever you want to call it the other day. I heard Dan Le Batard speak on it. I heard Jamel Hill speak on it. I heard Charlemagne the God speak on it. All people I respect profoundly. I heard my man Shannon Sharp, who's got his hit podcast Nightcap with Ocho Cinco. I heard them speaking about it too. In Dan Le Batard's case, I have to say I was disappointed. Dan Le Batard is one of the few people who know intimately the details of what I was alluding to, and I thought he could have been more forthcoming than what he was. I wasn't upset at him by any means. He didn't say anything disrespectful or anything like that. I just wish that he had been more open. If you're going to speak on it, speak on it. when you know. I didn't think he did enough of that. Jamel Hill saying that it was odd hearing me curse. Well, that's true on the airwaves. Sorry, Pastor. It needs to be more true off the airwaves. I could cuss a little bit less, and I'm working on that. But she implied that, I didn't sound authentic. Really? Okay. At least she confirmed what I was saying was true. Charlemagne the God. I'm going to say something you don't hear a lot of people say about Charlemagne the God. I like that brother. I genuinely do. DJ Envy and I have known each other for years. Queen's brother right there. All the best to you, my brother. You know the love is here. But I got love for Charlemagne the God too. Breakfast Club is a fantastic show. I've been a guest on that show a few times. Mad love and respect to them. My disappointment with Charlemagne the God was questioning whether or not I was doing it to get clicks, because Club Shay Shay with Shannon Sharp got an abundance of clicks with the whole Cat Williams interview. Really? I can't just be pissed off? Really? Ladies and gentlemen, I own and operate this podcast. I have employees, producers, and, engineers and writers, editors, all this stuff. I own and operate this podcast. This is mine. I answer to no one. It's because I want to do it. I have a day job. That day job doesn't need clicks. It has ratings. And those ratings have been number one for 12 years and counting in the mornings. And when I say number one, I'm not talking about annually. I'm talking about every week and every month and every year for a decade. And in case you don't know anything about this business, allow me to educate you. There is an industry out there, a very profitable industry, that's still trying to figure out how to monetize the world of digital. That's why you saw a SAG-AFTRA strike. It's why you see networks laying off employees in linear television, but in the digital stratosphere, more opportunities are being created. You see more platforms available because there's more opportunities out there in the digital stratosphere. But because there's so many options, the money received by one entity might not be enough, which is why linear dollars is still paramount. Who's number one in linear? That would be me. My point is, I don't need clicks. It's nice to have them. I certainly want them. It builds a subscriber base. Cool, no problem. You're getting into this business, that comes with it. But I don't need it. Because I'm already winning here. And as it pertains to Shannon Sharp, I do not compete with him outside of debating against him on the show. If that were the case, I would not have went out and got him to come on First Take. He had a name on FS1, working opposite Skip Bayless on Undisputed. Why would I go get him? Because he's great. He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion. He's a Hall of Famer. And I personally think he's a genuinely good dude that was being screwed over. And I did not want him to be in the position that I was in 2009, wondering what kind of career I would have left when I was let go. As it pertains to Shannon Sharp directly, he too had an opinion about what I had to say on the last episode about an individual who will remain nameless, hopefully for the rest of my days on this earth. Here is Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco talking about me and what transpired on my last show on Nightcap just the other night.
But I told Stephen, I said, Stephen A., will you please stop lending people your audience?
Yeah. Sometimes sometimes you got to put people in your place. Sometimes you got to put people in your place. Because what happens is, if you don't say nothing, they're going to keep on coming at you, and they're going to keep on coming for you. Normally, when you're in school and there's a bully and he's bullying you, he's going to keep on bullying you until you stand up to him. So at some point, I'm assuming Stephen A. is fed up, because Mr. Whitlock has always been going at him and going at him and going at him and going at him and taking shots at him throughout the years, and now he's finally fed up. You got to stand up for yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen, they're both right. In fairness to Shannon Sharpe has been saying that to me for weeks, because he knew what I was going to do, and he didn't want me to do it. So I appreciate his brotherhood and his friendship. But Chad Ochocinco hit the nail on the head. At some point, enough's enough. And you got to raise up and let somebody know you ain't having it. You're just not having it. You want to put something out there in the ether because you know that no matter what that person says about you, here are your comments attached to that person, and it lives in perpetuity, and now I'm over with it. I'm done with it. Now I get back to being me. But in the process of being me, I want you to understand it was incredibly important to have this show today as a follow-up, because it's one thing to address that specific individual the other day. Now it's time for me to address me and how some of you out there think about me. You don't know me. And what I would say to you is, particularly if you're Black, is shame on you for not knowing me. I'm on national television every day for 2 hours, 10 hours a week, a minimum of 45 weeks a year, which amounts to 450 appearances, or 4,500 hours to be specific. That's what I'm doing every year on television. I'm giving 15 takes a show, 75 a week, over 3,000 takes a year. And over the course of my career on First Take, we're not including SportsCenter, we're not including NBA Countdown, we're not including the NBA and Stephen A's World, which I once did, we're not including my takes on ESPN Radio, which I once did, or Mad Dog Sports Radio, which I once did, or the Stephen A. Smith Show that I'm doing now. Just for the purposes of First Take, I have spewed an opinion on over 45,000 issues in my career on First Take. Some of y'all will have a problem with 10 things that I said. And the 44,990 takes that I gave that you agreed with, you don't care about. And worse, when it comes to us, as a result of you having a problem with what my position is or what my take is, it can't be, oh, the take is the problem. Oh, it's got to be, I'm not really a brother. No other race does that to folks but us. When are we going to stop that? I can sit here and pontificate about that till the cows come home. But I won't. Instead, allow me to regurgitate something I have regurgitated over the years, because when I was on ESPN LA radio years ago, Snoop Dogg, my brother, unsolicited, called into the radio show and said, yo, I hear these people talking this crap about you. Man, you ain't selling out, you looking out. The issue at that particular time was weed and how I was opposed to it being used by professional athletes. Snoop Dogg had to call in and let everybody know I'm his brother. We all know Snoop Dogg is synonymous with weed. It don't stop me from loving him. I've never lectured him about it or anything. Why? Because it didn't affect his money. See, at some point in time, you got to make up your mind what you want from somebody like me. Because the other day I highlighted for you what someone else would do. They parrot themselves as the paragons of virtue, come to save the day, going to people that look differently than us and saying, I'm the one that will call them out, selling us out, throwing us down the river, treating us like we trash. If it's not an athlete one day, it's a hip hop artist the next. If it's not one of them, it's an actress. If it's not one of them, it's a network. If it's not one of them, it's one of us. African Americans in the industry. That is not me. On a case-by-case basis, my obligation is to call it as I see it from my lens. Sometimes you agree with me, sometimes you don't agree with me. But what you can never do is look at me and say, I don't love my peoples. When I talk to you about corporate America, ask the people who spoke it to me. Ask Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson on All the Smoke. Ask Podcast P led by Paul George. Ask them. Ask Ryan Clark and the boys with the pivot. Ask them. Ask anybody who's spoken to me. Ask Nate Burleson. Ask Michael Strahan. By the way, Michael Strahan, my thoughts and prayers are with you and your beautiful daughter. Recently revealed that Michael Strahan's daughter suffering from brain cancer. Love you, bro. My heart's with you. Stay strong, and I'm wishing the best for her. I'll call you soon. Ask Robin Roberts. I wish the late Stuart Scott and John Saunders was here. Ask Michael Wilbon, who's still here. Ask anybody who knows me. I never said you'll always agree with me. I never said I was always right. I give you my perspective from my lens. Why? To inform you. So you'll know what roadblocks and impediment lie in wait, and you'll know how to maneuver your way around it. If I sit up there and I say, like Dan Le Batard said on his show the other day, Stephen A. called me up when I was, rampaging against the establishment and rampaging against ESPN. I said, you can't do that you can't talk about the company like that. Yeah, Dan, that's fine, but that's not all I told you. I specifically said to you, it won't work. That is a battle you will lose. Ladies and gentlemen, what am I doing for you if I'm not talking to you about what will win? I never called myself this winner. I never said that I was some paragon of virtue. I never said that I knew everything. What I said was, because I'm number one, and because people have said you're in this position, you have a responsibility to bestow whatever knowledge you have upon those less knowledgeable because of less exposure, to expose them to that truth so they will be well armed to produce and be successful. Isn't that what we want from each other? What am I supposed to do? What am I really doing if I am sitting here and talking to you, and I'm never talking about anything that will help edify you and elevate your level of knowledge about the particular minefield that you're about to engage in, and I want you to win in? If I don't do that, what am I doing for you? That's me. And I have proof that's my intentions. Because y'all love to talk about my money. You love to point out how Stephen A. making millions, even though nobody gets it right. You want to talk about how I'm a millionaire? Well, how many brothers from the streets of New York City, from the hood, is a millionaire as a professional and ain't an athlete or a rap artist? How many of those exist? You're looking at one of them. I can shut up, go on my merry way, not say a word, and collect my check. I have never done that. I always reach back, and I always strive to do the best that I can to uplift and to help others along. I've done it with HBCUs, as I will continue to do. I've done it with charitable donations to my alma mater and others. I've done it with my time. I've done it with speeches. But most importantly, I've done it walking through the corridors of corporate America and saying, don't judge us as in a book by its cover. You'd be surprised what we can show you we have the potential to achieve if given the opportunity. But along the way, folks have their own rules and regulations. You know why? Because they don't believe you have the right to do what you want to do, say what you want to say, act the way you want to act, and do whatever the hell it is that your heart desires while you got your hand out for somebody else's money. There's a level of capitulation that entails everything. You want me to tell you who the real sellouts are? The real sellouts are the individuals who come before you telling you you could do whatever you want to do and be whatever you want to be, and you still gonna succeed when they didn't do it to succeed. They didn't highlight how they capitulated. They didn't highlight how they presented themselves and how they played to the tune of whatever they were taught would work so they could get what they wanted to get. But then they get it, and then they don't tell you the formula they utilized in order to get ahead. Stephen A. does not do that. I tell you the exact formula. I come on my podcast and I tell you that. I come on my show and I tell you that. I tell you that on First Take. I tell you that during interviews. I've told you that in my book, Straight Shooter, Memoir, Second Chances and First Takes. That's exactly what I have done. That is why I feel the need to speak up. I've often told folks in white America, they're very lucky. They come to work every day with a job to do. Black folks, particularly those who are successful, come to work with a responsibility. As a black man covering sports, what the hell do I have to do with Trayvon Martin? But every black person in America was saying, Stephen A., what you gonna say? Because I had the platform. When Tyree Nichols got brutalized by the officers in Memphis, Stephen A., what you gonna say? Ryan Clark, what you gonna say? Swagoo, what you gonna say? When Philando Castile got killed, when Freddie Gray got killed, Stephen A., what you gonna say? Those are not sports stories. But you insisted anyway. Because you know you're holding me to another standard. Because for years upon years upon years, black folks didn't have that voice. Yet we do now. The sad part is, you got a voice now too. And instead of utilizing it to strive to be as constructive as I strive to be. Not most of you, not all of you, but certainly enough of you. Your definition of content is to denigrate somebody else's perspective you may not agree with, instead of looking at where it's coming from and asking whether or not it's truly them edifying you about the minefields that lie in wait. I spoke up the other day in closing. I spoke up the other day because I wanted you to see that when you say those kind of things that you say, it wasn't me you're talking about. It was somebody else. And it should be clear who that somebody else is. But having said all of that, just understand that to my family, my friends, my loved ones, my employees, my team, you're not going to see that from me again. I will never do that again. But I didn't lose my temper. I wasn't out of control. I meant what I said. Every syllable. I've meant it for years. I just held it in. And every now and again in life, you're required to exhale, to let it out, to stop somebody who thinks they're a bully, excoriating folks at every turn because it's the only thing they have left in their arsenal because they can't get a real job. And to think they're going to do that. I wasn't going to let that happen. But I want to assure my daytime employers, Disney, ESPN. I want to ensure Mr. Iger, Mr. Pitaro, Mr. Magnus, Mr. Norby Williamson, Mr. Dave Roberts. I want to ensure my colleagues, because remember, when I act up, it affects the producers on First Take. It affects Molly Kiram, the matriarch of the show. It affects my contributors that work with me, my teammates on First Take. It affects my teammates here with the Stephen A. Smith Show. It affects advertisers and sponsors who believe in me and represent me. You don't have to worry about that from me again. I will never do that again. But it wasn't an accident. I called beforehand and gave a personal warning. Yes, including to my pastor, A.R. Bernard, for the Christian Cultural Center in Brooklyn, New York, who is my spiritual father. I got a ways to go. I'm not there yet. He knows that better than anybody. But he also knows that wasn't how I choose to conduct myself at any point in my career. I will never do it again. No one has anything to worry about with that with me. But I did it on purpose. My sister, Carmen, cringing, didn't want me to do it. Pastor Bernard didn't want me to do it. So many people didn't want me to do it. But they all conceded in the end it was necessary. Not to mention numerous bosses. Because remember, I used to work at Fox too. Just like I worked at ESPN. I used to work at these places. And I cannot tell you how many text messages I got from former bosses and colleagues. This has never happened to me in my career, where I didn't get a single text message finding anything wrong with what I said. They knew it was necessary once they heard what I had to say. And as an aside, my former colleague at ESPN, Mr. Sage Steele, Mrs. Conservative herself, I could respond to what she said, but it's not necessary. Because at the core of it all, I know that she was shocked and disappointed in me. And I don't blame her. Because she never heard me speak like that before. Especially on camera. And words like unprofessional certainly applied. To her as well, I would tell you. I did it on purpose. It was necessary. It's the only time in my life that I believe on camera, in a working environment, I would ever believe such language, such vitriol, such a delivery would be necessary. That was the one time. That's how you treat bullies. I will never regret it, and I will never backtrack from it. But again, I will never do that again. It's not how I roll. It's just that every now and then, a bully needs to be exposed and humbled, whether they know it or not. Back with more of the Stephen A. Smith Show in a minute. What's that? What you put in the desk box on my desk for?
Just open it. Just open it.
Man, you couldn't have opened it for me? What? Yeah. Ah, my new book on paperback. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. It works for me. It works for me. Y'all see this. New foreword and all. Stephen A. in paperback. Straight shooter. Memoir, second chances and first takes. I haven't gotten over that picture. It does look pretty smooth. I must say so myself. It's a bestseller. I'll hold on to this. Hope you go out and get it. Thank y'all so much for the love and support. Wouldn't be here without you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube. And before I move on a few NBA items, listen. To really, really close the gap on the initial point that I made in my opening monologue, you're going to see, I don't care if there's current NBA players or professional athletes, you're going to see former NBA athletes and stuff like that. And, you know, they feel whatever way they want to feel about me. I'm not going to say any names because I don't feel like getting into all of that today. I've been through enough this week. But I can honestly tell you from the bottom of my heart, A, it's how I felt, and B, it was my job. And C, I never got personal. You see some guys going off and they're saying, yeah, I checked Stephen A. It never happened because I never had a problem with them to be checked. I see others talking about, you know, calling me names and going off and getting personal when the only thing I said about them was factual, going up against their own contemporaries on the NBA level. They simply could not play. The facts bear that out. As a basketball analyst, as a professional sports commentator and analyst, understand that there are a multitude of bodies that exist on every roster. And for everyone that has a job, it's hundreds, if not thousands of others you're costing that job to. because they don't have a spot. And so as a result, when you show an inability to perform, it's going to be said. And it's just that simple. And when you have folks, there have been times in the past where I've had to address people because, you know, they try to come at me as a black man. Or put my resume up against theirs in terms of who does what for our community. Name the time and place and I'll show up. And so you just think about that. You see, you know, comedians and others and certain folks are supposed to be comedians, but ain't making anybody laugh because they're so incendiary. There's nothing funny about it. It's vicious. But talking about, well, Stephen A. and he knocks the brothers. Well, wait a minute. If brothers are playing against brothers in a basketball game and one plays lights out and the other plays like trash, what the hell am I supposed to say? That's who you were going against. You know, somebody acting, you know, folks are treating this like Larry Holmes is going up against Jerry Cooney and he knocks out Jerry Cooney and I'm talking about Larry Holmes negatively. I mean, what are you talking about? When Terrence Crawford beat Errol Spence, what was I supposed to say about Errol Spence? What was I supposed to say? It just amazes me sometimes how we forget that. But I'm going to be me. I'm not changing. I believe I'm fair-minded to everybody as it pertains to their results. My heightened level of sensitivity comes towards black people about things of a social nature, meaning our environment, what we grew up in, what we were surrounded by, the trials and tribulations and the obstacles that we have to overcome. It's not going to be based on, that's not going to come into play when it comes to your performance. You step on that basketball court, you step on that football field, you step on that baseball field, you step in a boxing ring or UFC octagon ring or whatever. No, I'm going to call it like I see it based on the event taking place before our very eyes. That's what it is. I was not happy at all. And I remember, I'll tell y'all a real quick story before I get into my NBA items. I wasn't happy at all when Nate Robinson got knocked out by Jake Paul. That was vicious. I can't tell you how many black people were in my camp laughing their behinds off. They thought it was funny as hell. They brought up how Nate Robinson was talking smack to Jake Paul on YouTube and calling him out and inviting himself into that situation. I was thinking about the fact that Jake Paul secretly has been training with professional boxing trainers. And Nate Robinson was a basketball player, fight a boxer. I didn't think it was fair. I didn't laugh. It's still not funny to me. I haven't seen Nate Robinson since. Because it had to be embarrassing because he got put to sleep. Remember that sound from Snoop Dogg? Oh, Lord. And Snoop Dogg was like that, but even Snoop Dogg told me he stopped joking the minute he saw how hurt Nate Robinson was. He could not even sit up on his stool. It was that bad. It might have been more funny if he was a boxer. But he never trained. He wasn't a boxer. But I digress. I'm simply saying I'm going to call it like I see it. That's who I am. That's what comes along with me. I'm going to be fair and objective in what I see and what I say and what I call out. It is who I am. I am not changing. But I'll never be personal. Let me get to my basketball stuff right here because I was recently listening to Carmelo Anthony, Melo, as we all love to call him, on the 7 p.m. in Brooklyn podcast with Carmelo Anthony and Kid Mero. I don't even know where I need to start when it comes to going through this. Carmelo Anthony was reminiscing about his days with the Denver Nuggets. And Carmelo Anthony felt the need to bring up Jokic, as in Nikola Jokic, as in a two-time league MVP and a reigning defending NBA champion Nikola Jokic. Carmelo Anthony brought him up because there was some issue with Jokic getting the jersey number 15, which is the same number Carmelo Anthony wore during his tenure in the Mile High City. Drafted in 2003, was in Denver until the 2010-2011 season when he forced his way out of Denver to go to the New York Knicks. This is what Carmelo Anthony had to say as it pertained to his thoughts about Nikola Jokic being given the number 15 to wear. I hate doing stuff like this, but we've got to be factual to some degree anyway, because Carmelo brought up something that simply makes no sense to me. I want everybody to understand that a legitimate argument could be made that in 2003, it shouldn't have been LeBron James who was Rookie of the Year. It should have been Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony was balling. And Denver was winning. And Carmelo Anthony could have easily been Rookie of the Year. That's number one. Number two, the Detroit Pistons, although it was understandable because they were they were en route to being a championship team. They had gone to 6 straight conference finals and back-to-back NBA finals and won a championship led by the Joe Dumars, who's now the VP of basketball operations for the NBA league office. A legitimate, obviously, one of the blemishes on his career, even though they already had Tayshaun Prince in the lineup with Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, Rip Hamilton, Chauncey Billups. A legitimate argument could easily have been made that they should have drafted Carmelo Anthony. Biggest mistake the Detroit Pistons ever made. They drafted Darko Milicic instead, and they never recovered, really. Even though they won thereafter in the immediate years following, the bottom line is it was always held against Joe Dumars to some degree that he didn't draft Carmelo Anthony. But Carmelo Anthony making the assertion that he made about Jokic respectfully makes no sense. Melo, you know I love you, bro. My dog, but come on, man. This makes no sense. First of all, Carmelo Anthony departed in the 2010-2011 season. Nikola Jokic was drafted 41st overall, the 11th pick of the second round in the 2014 NBA draft, 3 years later. So, to me, that argument makes no sense. It almost sounded like Carmelo Anthony was saying Jokic got the uniform while he was still there, for crying out loud, which obviously makes no sense because if he was still there, obviously Jokic wouldn't have been able to get the number 15, but you're basically acting as if the Denver Nuggets owed you something. I believe they would have. You averaged 24.8 points, 6.3 rebounds. You got to a Western Conference Finals with them. I get that. And I get what Carmelo Anthony is saying in defense of him when he went on All the Smoke with my boys Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, and he explained it by saying, we go to the Western Conference Finals in 2009. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to build on that. You're supposed to add pieces, plug and play. Don't mess the core up. They got rid of Dante Jones. On that team, Dante was a key piece on that team. Get rid of Dante Jones, they're like, we ain't re-signing Chauncey. We're about to trade JR, as in J.R. Smith. Kmart contract is up. All right? And the lockout's coming. So I'm not about to rebuild. I'm not going to rebuild after we went to the Western Conference Finals. That's what Carmelo Anthony echoed to justify forcing his way out of Denver, going to the New York Knicks, along with Billups, Sheldon Williams, Anthony Carter, and Ronaldo Balkman. And in replacement, the Knicks sent Wilson Chandler, Raymond Felton, Danilo Gallinari, Timothy Mozgov, a first-round pick and and 2 second-round picks to the Denver Nuggets. Fair enough. I understand the explanation, Carmelo. My only retort to that is, what does a team owe you if you forced your way off of their franchise? Now, see, when LeBron left, LeBron fulfilled his contractual obligation and then turned around and departed for Miami, took his talents to South Beach. We all know this. I broke that story. In that story, I also reported that it was supposed to be Carmelo Anthony who was in Miami with D. Wade and LeBron James, not Chris Bosh. But if y'all remember, prior to 2007, or leading 2007, whereas LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and D. Wade all signed contracts that gave them an out after 3 years, which allowed them to be free agents in 2010, If you remember, Carmelo Anthony was locked into a 5-year deal. How would I know that? Because I interviewed Carmelo Anthony. And when I asked him about being in a 5-year deal, he literally sat on my couch, in my chair, on my show, quite frankly, which was on ESPN2 back from 2005 to 2007. Carmelo Anthony sat in the chair. And thank you for that, because he graced me with his presence. It was a great interview. And when he sat down and he said that, he said, yo, man, I'm from Baltimore. I'm from the streets. I ain't turning down 5 years of guaranteed money. That was his thinking. D-Wade, Bosh, and LeBron bet on themselves. Carmelo locked himself into a 5-year deal, which means that in order to get out of Denver, he had to force his way out, and it had to occur via trade instead of free agency, because he locked himself in by guaranteeing himself the 5 years. So if you force yourself out off of a team, respectfully, why should they want to retire your number? Why shouldn't they want somebody else wearing the number? Why shouldn't they want somebody help them kind of forget about you? Not because you weren't great, because Carmelo Anthony is one of the prolific scorers this game has ever seen. And oh, by the way, whether you like it or not, he's a Hall of Famer. Because when you consider the national championship at Syracuse, when you consider his collegiate record, and when you consider what a scoring machine he was for the better part of his NBA career, and you combine his basketball resume being an Olympic gold medalist as well, I might add, you take all of those things into consideration, and the fact that the Hall of Fame is not an NBA Hall of Fame, but a basketball Hall of Fame, Carmelo Anthony is going into the Hall of Fame. Carmelo Anthony is a Hall of Famer. He is a Hall of Famer. Just get over it. And by the way, one of the best brothers I know. Real as they come. Melo is Melo. But he's a good dude. His family, his brother Justice, and all of them, man, please, they know what love I got for them. But I can't knock the Denver Nuggets for putting the number 15 jersey on somebody else. They probably didn't know how good Nikola Jokic was going to be, because they certainly don't regret it now. And his number will be retired. And his numbers will hang in those rafters. But if they don't want to forget, if they don't want to remember you, Melo, it's because you forced your way out. Had you left as a free agent, you could come back one day. That's different. But forcing your way out of the city, regardless of what you articulated, which were all valid points, by the way, you still forced your way out. And when you force your way out, they're not supposed to honor you. Respect you, yes. Honor you is different. And I think that's important to point out. Another story I want to get into is Ime Udoka, head coach for the Houston Rockets, about to return to Boston for the first time since he was exiled from that city as head coach for the Celtics because of transgressions with an employee of the team. And that's all we're going to say. Don't know whether she was married or single or whatever it is. And he wasn't married, but obviously he was in a relationship with Nia Long and all of this other stuff. And he's returning to Boston for the first time. I think Boston's the best team in basketball, despite the fact that they got smoked by Milwaukee last night. Means absolutely nothing to me, because it was the second game of back-to-backs. It was their 5th game in 7 days. They were tied, and that's why Mazzulla benched the starters for the entire second half. Okay? It's just that simple. That won't happen again. But I will tell you this. I don't care how good they look. And I respect the hell out of Joe Mazzulla as a coach. He ain't Ime Udoka. Ime Udoka is a hell of a coach. And if you don't believe me, just go look at the Houston Rockets right now. You understand that the Houston Rockets got a chance to make the playoffs. That team that was as moribund, as pathetic as it comes over the previous few years, that team is vying for a playoff spot. Yes, the acquisitions of Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet definitely helped. Jalen Green and those boys, they can play. But Ime Udoka is the difference. This man can coach. And I'm telling you right now, even though I expect Boston to win this year, because Jason Tatum is a superstar and Jaylen Brown is a star and Porzingis, a 7'3" shooter and shot blocker, is an added addition and commodity to them, and they should be able to beat anyone outside of Denver. It could come down to them against Denver. Bottom line is this. I don't care how good Mazzulla is, and I concede he's very good and the team is great. Ime Udoka is a sensational coach. And it sickens me that he had to go through what he had to go through. And I don't think any decent soul should ever forgive the Boston Celtics. I shouldn't say forgive because forgiveness is in the eye of the beholder, but they should never forget what Boston did to him. I'm going to say this, and I say this again. Everybody says, oh, Stephen A., what are you talking about? Did this? No. We ain't legislating people's relationships. Neil Long's relationship with Ime Udoka is none of your business. It don't have nothing to do with you. You ain't in their bedroom. You ain't humping up and down with them. Ain't got nothing to do with you. Nothing. That's their business. Here's what's our business. The fact that the information was leaked out. And this man was paraded all over the news, the airwaves, and the news wires. That was wrong. Boston Celtics, fire him or keep him. But what you don't do is leave him dangling on an indefinite suspension, have his assistant step in as the head coach, and then, oh, by the way, leak it out that his actions involved sexual relations with somebody that works within the organization. Because I know plenty of white dudes that have been screwing around in their places of business. Many. I never heard anything said about them. I know of at least 2 individuals who were fired from NBA teams because of that. No one knew. They're departing ways with the organization, undisclosed reasons or personal reasons. They're moving on, and that's all you heard. But Ime Udoka, his stuff was publicized to the point where he got to sit on a podium answering questions about his proclivities and his sex life and how he got to take his kid to therapy because of all that his kid has been through. Like that's any of our business. What a violation. What a violation. Again, I'm not condoning anything. I'm simply saying that was none of our business. That was none of our business. Now, I ain't the type of dude that would ever dime out anybody, ever. But I will say this. If somebody white is having an extramarital affair in the NBA with somebody in the office and it gets found out publicly, then I'm not going to mind because I'll think it's fair. My perfect world is we don't know about that. Just like we shouldn't have known about Ime Udoka. But that ain't what happened. And that's sad. So I just want to say that. I want to bring that up because that's near and dear to my heart because I'm so happy for him and that he's turning that Houston Rockets franchise around. They're going to win the damn championship this year. We know that, but at least they're going to be respectable, and I think they're going to be vying for a playoff spot. And I think this dude is a sensational coach, and I believe without question, I believe if he was coaching the Celtics last year, they would have been back in the finals. I believe the Boston Celtics would have had a better chance of beating Denver than Miami did because they had more size on them, and they had Jalen. They obviously had Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. They had Derek White, Marcus Smart at the time, and now they got Jrue Holiday with Derek White, with Porzingis, with Tatum, with Brown. They got size, and people keep underestimating Denver's size. Denver's a big team. They're a big team. What you got to have to beat them, you got to have size. You got to have perimeter play. You have to have an elite defense, and you have to have star power. Boston has it all. If anybody can dethrone the Denver Nuggets, it is the Boston Celtics. That is true, as long as they ain't jacking up 63s a game. But in spite of all of that, Here's the reality. I wish I could be talking about the Lakers that way. I can't. They're trash. They're awful. They got their ass kicked last night by the Phoenix Suns. Devin Booker and Bradley Beal took turns waxing them. Literally took turns. Kevin Durant practically took the night off. All he was doing was giving them the ball with an occasional jumper here, or occasional steal and breakaway dunk there. He was basically just giving them the ball. Lakers had no answer. LeBron, he's 39 years of age in his 21st season. He took a night off. He wasn't himself. Anthony Davis did the same thing. I don't blame them one bit. They're carrying the team. Lakers are probably going to make a move. I don't think DeJounte Murray is the move because I don't think he's a shooter. I think the Lakers need a shooter. Yes, they need a defender. Yes, they need another big body, but they also need a shooter. And I'm tired of seeing people come to the Lakers and not be able to shoot because that's why they keep losing. Because LeBron James is getting people the ball. They can't make shots. That's the problem. Only person he can trust to make shots is Anthony Davis. Proud of Anthony Davis. Was critical of Mr. Six Flags himself, the roller coaster going up and down all the time, 40 points one game, 11 points the next, particularly against somebody the quality of Jokic, but he has played his behind off this year. Anthony Davis is a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. He's an all-star caliber player. The brother's playing like a star. And LeBron is LeBron. They have no help. And I guess the Lakers going to pull the trigger and they're going to make a move because they don't have any choice. They're probably going to give up a pick along with somebody like Rui Hachimura or somebody. And as a result, they'll keep their team intact, most of their team intact. They won't have any picks until the year 2030. No exaggeration. It's true. But hey, that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. Because when you have LeBron James severely strapped, and LeBron is 39, he can only do but so much, y'all. I mean, my God. These players get checks too. Problem is they getting checks and they hanging out at the beach or in Malibu or at Nobu or someplace else instead of doing what they can to prepare themselves to help out LeBron and Anthony Davis and Darvin Ham and Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss. It's a damn shame. It really is. But it is what it is. What can I say? I don't think LeBron's going to win another title. Can't see it. Right now, it almost looks like the only reason he's still playing is to be here for when Bronny gets to the NBA, assuming that happens. Because the Laker teammates outside of Anthony Davis certainly are not giving him a reason to believe that he's going to be contending for a championship anytime for the foreseeable future. That's just the way it is, y'all. Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Denver, Sacramento, Clippers. Those are the teams automatically better than the Lakers. Automatically. That's before you think about the Dallases of the world and a few others. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airways of YouTube. Back with NFL playoff action. I'm going to give you my picks for this week in slew of NFL games. Not to mention, congratulations to the New England Patriots, along with my awards for the NFL season. All of that and more up next, live right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. YouTube style. Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airways of YouTube. I want to transition to the NFL before I get on out of here for the day. The NFL action and some of your tweets. First of all, first order of business is to say congratulations. Congratulations to Gerard Mayo, the linebackers coach for the New England Patriots that was just named the new head coach for the franchise. This dude was a former defensive rookie of the year. He was a captain on the Patriots for 7 consecutive years. A captain for one of Bill Belichick's teams. Think about that. So we like that. He also is a Super Bowl champion. He's been coaching there since 2019. He's a brother, black man. I'm very happy about that. We all know what my position is on the paucity of black coaches in the National Football League and in collegiate football. It's a subject that's near and dear to my heart. And I love the fact that the NFL process was bypassed, the hiring process was bypassed, because a succession plan was put in place by the New England Patriots last year with the NFL league office, because they knew that if Bill Belichick elected to have this as his last year, that they had a successor in place who was a minority candidate. And this is the first time that I can recall that succession plan being utilized for a black candidate, because the Rooney Rule, after all, that was what its intent was, to open up opportunities for minorities in the sport back in 2003. And so he's a native of Hampton, Newport News, Virginia, same as Mike Tomlin. So we got two black coaches in the National Football League, both from the same hometown. And he's the youngest coach in the NFL. And so, listen, you talk about a culture change. I mean, some would sit up there and call him a mini Belichick or Belichick Jr. I hope not. He needs to be his own man. He needs to be a bit different. He doesn't need to shove aside things that worked for Bill Belichick, but in the same breath, he's not Bill Belichick. There's only one. And so I wanted to point that out. Now let me get to my awards, because there's an abundance of awards to get into. And I wanted to get into a couple of things before I went to my picks for this weekend, just to get it out the way right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. My MVP. Thought about this long and hard. There were various candidates, of course. Believe it or not, I consider Dak Prescott. I know that's shocking and hard for you all to believe, especially if you're a Cowboy fan, because you know how disgusting and nauseating I think y'all are. It's all love, though. It's all in fun. Love to hate Cowboy fans, not the Cowboys. I'm a huge Micah Parsons fan. I'm a huge Trayvon Diggs fan. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons I want y'all to lose this year is because I want Trayvon Diggs to be there when you win. And even though I troll y'all a lot, I would actually be happy if Jerry Jones won a championship, before he passes. He believes his mortality is knocking at the door and what have you. I hope he's around for a long time. But I don't wish Dallas Cowboy fans to win anything when it comes to the Cowboys, because y'all are just too annoying. But Dak Prescott did warrant consideration for league MVP. Brock Purdy warranted consideration for league MVP. Christian McCaffrey warranted consideration for league MVP. I'll acknowledge all of those things. But I got to give it to Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. When I think about Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens 13-3 record. He completed 67% of his passes, threw for 3,678 yards, 24 touchdowns, rushed for 821 yards, by the way, rushed for 5 touchdowns as well. He was the unanimous NFL MVP in 2019, if you remember correctly. But just look at some of these numbers. His passer rating, 102.7, third in the NFL behind Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott. Total yards of offense, pass yards plus rush yards, sixth in the NFL with 4,281 yards. Interception percentage, 1.5, tied for third lowest in the NFL. Okay? This is Lamar Jackson's record versus winning teams this season. 10-3. 68% completions, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, a 106.3 passer rating. Had a perfect passer rating versus the Dolphins. Remember when they blew them out like 56-21, completed 18-21 passes, 321 yards, 5 touchdowns, not a single interceptions. Led all NFL qualifying players with 5.5 yards per carry. This is who Lamar Jackson is. And I saw them go up. All right? No matter who they were going up against. The Baltimore Ravens handled their business. We saw what they did when they went up against the San Francisco 49ers, didn't we? I know I did. And I'm just looking at them against Cincinnati, against San Francisco, against Miami, against Seattle, against Detroit. Blow them out. Blow them out. Baltimore showed me something this year. And I think they got a big-time shot to win the Super Bowl. Okay? So I just wanted to throw that out. Defensive Player of the Year was kind of tricky because I thought about this long and hard. All right? But as I sat back and I thought about it, Myles Garrett for the Cleveland Browns. 14 sacks. Tied for 7th in the NFL. Tackles for a loss, 17, tied for 7th in the NFL. Forced fumbles, 4, tied for 5th in the NFL. The Cleveland Browns, Leaders in total defense, pass defense, third down defense at 29% conversions. Largely because Miles is busy terrorizing quarterbacks. I might add that the Cleveland Browns are in the playoffs, having won as many games as they won this season, using 5 different quarterbacks this year. 5! Damn it, that sounds like San Francisco from last year. And oh, by the way, Garrett, 27.5% pass rush win rate, wasn't just the best in the league this year by 3.4 percentage points. It was the best Pro Football Focus has ever measured over a single season. So that just means he's terrorizing quarterbacks. Nobody can stop him. And Cleveland got the number 1 defense. Why wouldn't I give him Defensive Player of the Year? Why wouldn't I? So props to him. Let me go to Offensive Rookie of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to waste much time on that. That's C.J. Stroud. Houston Texans. I don't even want to hear about second place. They don't even matter. It's not even important. C.J. Stroud is that dude. Third quarterback in the last 50 seasons to lead the NFL in pass yards and TD interception ratio, along with Joe Montana and Tom Brady, 1989 and 2007, respectively. His record versus winning teams, 6-3 with 312 pass yards per game, 18 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. First rookie in the Super Bowl era to lead the NFL in pass yards per game, 274, and TD to interception ratio, 23-5. Had the NFL's lowest interception percentage at 1%, meaning he averaged just 1 pick per 100 pass attempts. He's a rookie. And Nico Collins and Tank Dell are guys he was throwing the football to. 45% of his pass attempts came when the Texans were trailing. In those situations, he completed 65% of his passes for 13 touchdowns, not one single interception, and a 112 passer rating. There's nothing to talk about. He's the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Defensive Rookie of the Year, a little bit tricky, but I got to tell you who I'm going with. Defensive tackle out of Georgia, Mr. Jalen Carter. I know he tailed off as the season waned in Philadelphia. All right? They said he fell just 0.7 grading points short of surpassing Aaron Donald's rookie overall grade record of 90.5, but broke the Pro Football Focus record for the highest pass rush grade at 85.9 and a pass rush win rate of 17.7% by a first-year interior defender. He had 6 sacks this season, which ranked him 5th among all rookies. Defensive Rookie of the Year, he deserves that. Okay? So let me get that out the way. Coach of the Year. A lot of tough calls. I like the job Dan Campbell did in Detroit. I like the job Mike McCarthy did in Dallas. Okay? I think about that. That's true. But I got to tell you something right now. How could we give it to anybody? I love the job Kevin Stefanski did in Cleveland. 5 different quarterbacks. Look what they're doing. That's who they play this weekend. But I love the fact that D'Amico Ryans, Houston, Coach of the Year. Offensive Rookie of the Year, definitely Coach of the Year. Texans went from worst to first, 3-13 to 10-7. 7-game improvement. First year, rookie head coach. Now, this guy inherited a team that was an NFL worst, 11-38-1 over the previous 3 seasons. Let's call it what it is, okay? So I want to put that out the way. And last but not least, my Offensive Rookie of the Year, my Offensive Player of the Year, I'm sorry. This is a tough one. I'm looking at Christian McCaffrey, 1,459 yards, leading rusher. Second place, 292 yards more than second place, Derrick Henry. Scrimmage yards, 2,023. Led the NFL. Total touchdowns, scored 21. Tied for the first in the NFL with Raheem Mostert for Miami. I hear y'all with that. I can't knock it. Christian McCaffrey is a real big-time selection. But I got to go with Tyreek Hill. First 12 games this season, 12 touchdowns, averaging 123 receiving yards per game, and was on pace for an NFL record 2,098 receiving yards. But he injured his ankle a month ago against the Titans and was compromised ever since that. Averaging 79 yards per game with 1 touchdown in 4 games. But let me read this to you. Receiving yards, 1,799, number 1 in the NFL. Receptions, tied for second in the NFL at 119. Only CeeDee Lamb had more with 135. TD catches, 13. Tied for first with Mike Evans in Tampa for the NFL lead. Receiving first downs, 83 catches for a first down, led the NFL. Deep passes this season, 20 or more air yards. Caught 21 of 35 targets, 60% for 38 yards. Receptions, 8 TD passes, 2 drops, 2 passes intercepted. Very simple question for you. What would the Miami Dolphins be without Tyreek Hill? They'd be home. They wouldn't even get an opportunity to freeze their asses to death this weekend in Kansas City. They'd be home. So let's get that out the way. Okay? Tyreek Hill is my offensive player of the year. Before I let you get on out of here, my picks. Cleveland going to Houston, 1:30 game Saturday on NBC. That's what they say. And you got a lot of people looking at Houston. I know I'm happy Houston's in there because I wanted to see C.J. Stroud in the playoff game, his first playoff game, so I'm definitely happy about that. But I'm picking Cleveland to win this game. Yeah, Joe Flacco may turn the ball over, but I think that Joe Flacco's 39. He's experienced. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's been in these situations before. He's going up against a rookie head coach. He's going up against a rookie quarterback. And I think they can run the football. You got a number 1 receiver in Amari Cooper. You got an elite tight end in David Njoku. And you got a defense that's off the charts. And I think C.J. Stroud is going to have a much time producing against Cleveland than Flacco is going to have a producing against Houston's defense. I'm sorry. Now, you do have some people to sit up there and say, C.J. Stroud, have you seen this boy fling the football? I will remind you, not usually against man coverage. He has his most troubles versus man coverage. So keep an eye out for that, okay? Miami at Kansas City. Miami will lose this game, and they deserve it. You were in first place. You were feeling yourself. You weren't focused enough. You were dreaming about having playoff games in South Beach. You wheeled the cart before the horse. The cart before the horse. Shame on you. And as a result of that, you lost the division crown to Buffalo, who beat you the last game of the season. And on top of all of that, I understand you got injuries and all of this other stuff. I get all of that. But damn it, y'all wasn't focused, and you blew it. And now you got to go freeze in Kansas City. It's going to be minus 4 degrees. That ain't South Beach. The weather alone, even knowing Kansas City Chiefs receivers will drop passes, the weather alone is going to ruin Miami. Sunday's game, Pittsburgh at Buffalo. I appreciate the fact that Pittsburgh reminded the NFL they do have an offense the last 2 weeks of the season, but I don't see them beating Josh Allen in Buffalo. Green Bay and Dallas. As much as I hate to admit it, I see Dallas winning this game and dropping over 40. Green Bay's defense is horrible. I got a bad knee. I'm in my 50s, and I don't think they could defend me. I'm not sold on Green Bay at all. I think Jordan Love is a stud. 32 touchdowns, over 4,100 yards passing in his first season as a quarterback. I think Jordan Love has tremendous promise, but it ain't going to show this weekend. Green Bay loses this game. The Los Angeles Rams and the Detroit Lions. That's an interesting one right there. It's a late night game, Eastern Standard Time. I'm picking the Detroit Lions. Ladies and gentlemen, they've won 1 playoff game in the last 30 years. That's in 1991. Do you know that's the only playoff game the Detroit Lions have won since 1957? I think they win this. I think they answer the call. And then, of course, Monday, Philadelphia is at Tampa Bay. Jalen Hurts' fingers hurt. A.J. Brown hurt his leg. Eagles defense, their secondary is horrible. And Sirianni, without his coordinators, doesn't seem to know what he's doing. They seem to be a bit discombobulated. I can't pick the Eagles in this game. Jalen Hurts has thrown 8 interceptions against blitzes, and very few people blitz more than Todd Bowles. He blitzes coming off the team bus. So I just see it that way, and I see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beating the Philadelphia Eagles But I'll revisit more of this on Monday. Before I get on out of here, just a couple of tweets, a few tweets to look at. Let me get this out the way before I leave. And I thank y'all for tuning in. Let's see. At Non-Brennan Hogan. Do you think more people know who Ellen DeGeneres is or who Wayne Gretzky is? Easily Ellen DeGeneres. The hell's wrong with you? Okay. Now, hockey has its fan base. And I'm friends with Commissioner Gary Bettman for the NHL, so I root for them. And I love me some Wayne Gretzky, who was a superstar, but it's been years since he's played, even though everybody knows him. But Ellen DeGeneres is pretty damn popular. Now, I know you might be trying to be slick. Hockey's an international sport because it's big in Canada. And you know what? Ellen DeGeneres is big in a few places as well. And I'm willing to bet she's probably big in Canada as well. So that's just me. All right? I want you to know that. This guy, CFC Accountable, right? Stephen A., what's your best men's fashion advice? I'm trying to look dapper for a date tomorrow. Okay. First things first. Please make sure your clothes are clean. And when I say clean, I don't mean just look clean and not dirty. Don't smell either. Number 2, make sure you take a shower or a bath. Odor turns human beings off, especially women. The smell needs to be attractive. It doesn't need to be too pronounced because you don't know what cologne or whatever she might like or dislike. But you need to smell decent. Okay? Brush your teeth, wash your face, all of these, semantic things, all of these generic things. Of course, you got to do those things. All right? Whether it's jeans or slacks, make sure you have on a pair of shoes to go with it. Because you don't want to be too casual, because then she might interpret it as you not taking her seriously. So you have to be mindful of that. Outside of that, wear a collared shirt. Why? Because when you have on a collared shirt, you have the versatility to go anywhere. You're not limited in where you can and can't go, because some places are not going to allow you in their establishment with a t-shirt on. Also, have a wallet with cash and credit cards in it. Don't be looking for her to pay. That Dutch stuff they tell you about, that's in your dreams, my brother. When you're going out on a first date, she wants you to pay. Get over that. It's automatic. You can try that Dutch stuff later, but not when you're trying to impress. And again, you kind of know or have some kind of indication of what you can wear. You know how? When you first met her, what you look like. Be something similar within that range, because her recall will indicate why she gave you a chance to take her out to begin with. Replicate that. Get adventurous later. Don't get adventurous now. You don't know her well enough to do that. Might turn her off. Just trust me on that, okay? Trust me on that. I got to get on out of here. I'm glad I hope y'all enjoyed the show. I know I did. And I hope y'all appreciated my opening monologue, because it came from the heart. I'll talk to y'all next week. I want y'all to enjoy this weekend. Until next time, this is Stephen A. signing off. Peace and love, everybody.